Donovan Olugbode caps off what is a truly unprecedented couple of days for Missouri football recruiting. Let's talk about this great news and more right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso, and the kind of guy who puts in a Friday after Independence Day. You are indeed welcome, everybody out there. On today's program, we're going to talk about Luther Burden at punt returner, something we've talked a lot about in this space. You know what, I'll have to admit, looking at how the game's played today, maybe I've overrated that particular talking point. But you know what, before we start the program, I do want to remind you today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. And it seems like I've been saying this a lot lately, but Missouri, once again, in terms of football recruiting, is swimming in unprecedented territory here, in new waters, for sure. And it really can't be emphasized enough, especially what's happened here the past couple of days. Of course, yesterday, Jayvan Boggs, a top 100 overall player, a wide receiver from the state of Florida. Well, back-to-back days now, you've got exactly that. Donovan Olugbode, as I'm now choosing to pronounce his name. I think the G is silent. I'm feeling better about that pronunciation after hearing the PA announcer shout it out a couple times while watching his film. So again, Donovan Olugbode, now one of two top 100 players out of state in back-to-back days for the Missouri Tigers. We're talking top 100 national players here, not just at their positions, but also from Florida as well, and not Missouri, not the nearby areas, because of course Missouri has gotten top 100 players in the past, but 9 times out of 10 it's from the state or the surrounding areas. Think Kansas City, Kansas, or East St. Louis, Illinois, that type of thing. But to get these type of guys, especially, hey, the whole blue blood argument, but it's back. Well, Missouri out-recruited for Donovan Olugbode, Florida, USC, the national runners-up last year in Washington, and also Oregon, who beat Missouri out for an in-state receiver, Isaiah Mosey. So while Mosey went to Oregon and Corey Sims went, also a CBC St. Louis area player, he chose to go elsewhere as well. I believe he committed to USC. Well, here's the deal. You win some, you lose some. If you're going to play in this type if you're going to swim in these type of waters, obviously you're not going to win every battle. But again, just the fact that Missouri is in a lot of these battles and winning their fair share of them at this point is truly without precedent. Has there ever been two top 100 players from that far out of the region, out of the state region and the stomping grounds, especially in back-to-back days like this? What an incredible coup for Eli Drinkwitz and his staff. Now, as for Donovan Olugbode, his talents, really good route runner. That's the first thing that stood out to me. I thought he has excellent feet, to the point where pressing him in coverage for a lot of college corners is definitely going to be easier said than done, especially as he fills out, gets that good old SEC and Mizzou training, that kind of deal. And he's got pretty good size already, though. At 6'1", he can go up and get the football, too. He can definitely high point the thing, not just a route runner, but a real athlete as well, as you might expect in a top 100 type of player. In fact, if you look at his junior year highlights over at huddle.com, the second play there is a really spectacular play where he makes a nice inside move from the slot before going outside on a corner slot fade, if you will, and then just takes down a beautiful one-handed catch in traffic. Made it look really easy, but his teammates were impressed on the sidelines, no doubt about that. And speaking of, he lined up in the slot. That is one difference from the film I noticed from Jayvan Boggs yesterday. And as I was saying yesterday, Boggs was from what I could tell, 100% of the time lined up on the boundary to the right side of the offense. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever, just a difference, I would say. Olugbode was all over the field for his school, for IMG Academy. He lined up in the slot, both sides, everything. So really, I think both of these guys, though, despite the slight differences in how they were used there in their high school seasons last year in Florida, I see a lot of similarities with both of these guys, really. They're similar sized, again, polished route runners, in my opinion, and technicians for guys who are really, really good athletes and obviously young athletes as well, guys who've just completed their junior year of high school. So, in my opinion, I think both of these guys have a chance to play early, with Missouri losing a lot of receiver talent after this coming season. At the very least, Luther Burden almost certainly is going to the NFL. Mookie Cooper and Theo Weiss are out of eligibility after this season. So a lot of guys are going to have opportunities to play, but I wouldn't dismiss Donovan Olugbode nor Jayvan Boggs and their potential to see the field really early, as early as their true freshman seasons. And in future years, I could certainly see either Olugbode or Jayvan Boggs being a punt returner for Missouri. Both are athletic guys with sure hands, and I have to say, these days I lean more toward the sure-handed players at the punt returner spot. For years and years, I've really thought punt returner was one of the most underrated positions on the field in terms of having a huge impact on your wins and losses. Not, of course, just with explosive plays, but a muffed punt can often be the difference between a win and a loss, and obviously lots of hidden yards there, per se, are left on the field when a punt returner, for instance, doesn't field a short kick that ends up dribbling 15, 20 yards down the field. Those are really big plays that make a huge difference in football games. But I have to say, the way football is being played now, I have to admit, maybe I'm starting to overrate that position a little bit. All offseason, I've been thinking, you know what, I think I'd like Luther Burden to have a co-punt returner, somebody who has incredibly sure hands. So let's talk more about this position, but I have to admit, I think I've been guilty of overrating the big play impact of this position, at least nowadays. It's really changed a lot in recent years, just special teams play in general. So let's talk about that coming up here in just a little bit, and we're going to bring up Missouri great Jeremy Maclin as well. First, though, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with more than 122 million parts. For your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So once again, for emphasis, in an ideal world this coming season, in my opinion, I would love to see Missouri be able to lighten Luther Burden's load just a tiny bit, because obviously Missouri has playoff aspirations, and they're going to need Luther Burden to get there. There's no question about that. And not only does Luther Burden have to catch balls downfield, he's got to catch them near the line of scrimmage. He's a jet sweep guy. He's involved in the running game as a blocker, yada, yada, yada. So the point is, in my perfect world, I'd love to see Burden have a co-punt returner, somebody who is incredibly sure-handed. And I actually think Marquise Johnson could maybe fill that role just based on his skill set that I've seen, just his ability to track the football. And guess what? He's incredibly explosive on top of it. So if it is Marquise Johnson, great. But just get somebody back there who you think is pretty sure-handed. But I have to say, I think I've been guilty of overrating the big play impact at that position because, well, quite honestly, the football that I grew up with in terms of special teams is no longer alive. And the NFL actually this season, a lot of argument about whether the new kickoff rules are good for the game or not. I'm definitely interested to see how it goes. To me, it's a lot better than just 85% touchbacks. For example, last season for Missouri, the Tigers in 13 games returned 20 kicks. That's fewer than 2 per game. Marquise Johnson led the Tigers with just 7 kickoff returns on the season. In terms of entertainment, that's not exactly high up on my list. I don't know about you. But now, if you'll allow me to use the Peter Griffin voice, you think that's bad? Well, the punt return game is even worse, just in terms of volume. This is something I wasn't even aware of, but I said Missouri returned 20 kickoffs last season. Well, would you believe Missouri only had 9 punts returned last season? 9. That's fewer than 1 per game. 8 was the leader, of course. Luther Burden, of course, was the leader, as you might have imagined, but just with 8 punt returns for 70 yards. Chris Abrams-Drain had 1 more punt return on the season for the Tigers. Again, that's a whole lot of fair catches and balls kicked out of bounds or just balls not fielded and left for dead, that type of thing. And just to compare that to a decade and a half ago when Jeremy Maclin, one of the greatest Tigers of all time, was running around, well, he had a massive amount of returns compared to that. 25 and 23 in his 2 years. Compare that to 8 last season for Luther Burden. And when it comes to kickoffs, it's truly night and day. Jeremy Maclin had 43 kickoff returns his freshman year and then 42 his sophomore season. Again, Marquise Johnson led the Tigers last season with 7. In 2008, the rest of the Tigers had 22 kickoff returns. Again, that's people not named Jeremy Maclin combined had more kickoff returns than the entire Missouri Tigers 2023 squad. I know I just threw a lot of numbers at you, and sometimes that can be a little tough in audio form. So I hope you got the point there. The point there is that Luther Burden just is not going to have very many opportunities to do anything in the punt return game. Teams have just gotten smarter, I think, with special teams over the year, just in terms of tactics. Guys have gotten better legs, I suppose, too, but it just seems like tactically teams are it's just a lot more difficult to return balls. That's very much true. Now, obviously, the leg thing and the kickoffs, that's pretty much it there. Leg strength, you're good to go. But in terms of punting, I think a lot of it truly is tactics. The point is I've been saying this offseason, hey, if Luther Burden has an outside shot to, say, win the Heisman, well, he might need to run back a punt in a big moment because historically, that often happens for these Heisman winners. And you know what? Jeremy Maclin, during his 2-year run, had 5 total returns of 4 touchdowns. That's punts and kickoffs. But again, just so many more opportunities for Maclin. It's crazy when you look at it statistically. Just doesn't seem like Burden is going to have that many opportunities. So to me, then it becomes a matter of, hey, let's probably play it a little more conservative. That's just the reality of the situation. Not only in terms of, hey, let's lighten Luther Burden's load, but let's also be conservative just in terms of possessing the football. That's the number one thing, especially with the offensive explosion we've seen the last few years, the last couple decades or so. When you get a change of possession, just go possess the football. That's the number one goal there. Worrying about let's get the fastest guy back there. Let's looking like diminishing returns at this point. And if you're bullish on the Missouri Tigers for this upcoming football season, of course, bullish is just genuine Wall Street gibberish for, I think they're going to be good this season, Paul. So if you think that Missouri is going to be better than the consensus, for example, of course, over at FanDuel Sportsbook, for instance, there's a bajillion different ways to play that. You could bet the Tigers over-under on the season, go over the 9.5, or bet on the Tigers to, say, win the SEC or the national championship. Let's really get wild out there, right? But to me, the best way to play Missouri this season, again, if you're liking their prospects, something I think is fairly likely to happen and a decent value over at FanDuel Sportsbook, to me, you can take a team to just simply make the college football playoff. And all along, of course, we've said that's the big goal for Missouri this season, right? Well, Missouri right now, simply to make the playoff is plus 180, meaning you bet $100, you win 180 if Missouri makes the college football playoff. To me, that's closer to maybe a toss-up. I think it's more of a 50-50 proposition, as that over-under total of 9.5 would lead me to believe. Because, again, my thing of this whole offseason has been, I think Missouri gets 10 wins. I think they'll make the playoff. Obviously, that's not 100%. I think it's probably like 90%, though. That's what I'm thinking. Just my opinion there. So to me, plus 180 on Missouri to make the playoff, that's a fairly substantial value there. It's nothing to go crazy about. But hey, the people over at FanDuel Sportsbook know what they're doing. They keep a pretty tight market. So when you can get a little bit of value, hey, why not throw a couple shekels on it? That's how I'm playing the Tigers this fall. And you know what? To close out today's program, I want to talk about something that I'm going to lead with this at some point. If this grows as much as it seems to be, this idea that Missouri should end the series with Kansas. There seems to be a surprising amount of fans online, at least, enough to, I want to at least ask you, my biggest listeners, my everydayers who listen, especially to the end of the program, are you interested in getting rid of the Jayhawks? Should it just be finished now? There's a lot of reasons, I guess, for this, I suppose, but well, let's talk it out here in a little bit. But I have to admit, I've been taken aback by the amount of people who seem to no longer be interested in playing the Missouri-Kansas rivalry. So let's talk about that here coming up. But first, you know what? Let's talk about Gametime because, yes, it is baseball season. I love going to baseball games during the summer, and Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And right now, the Royals traveling to Busch Stadium next Tuesday for a little two-gamer. Kansas City and St. Louis, the I-70 series renewed. Hey, left field box, not too shabby, just $12 per ticket, all in. I can even knock that down for you. All you have to do is take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the impulse to try to stick it to KU, Kansas, in any way possible. I completely and 100% support that thought, in fact. But I don't think Missouri should ever do that at its own expense. And I truly think that if you think we should end the Kansas series, I think that's a little myopic, and I think you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, in my opinion. And in fact, I actually praised Washington State and Washington, Oregon State and Oregon for keeping their Civil War and Apple Cup historic rivalries, keeping them going for this season. It's been really easy for Oregon State and Washington State. The last two members standing in the Pac-12 would have been easy for them to say, well, to heck with you, Oregon, to heck with you, Washington. You guys left for the Big Ten. You want to keep playing this game? Well, the heck with you. But honestly, and I would have been an understandable impulse. It really would have been. But here's the problem. Then you would have been taking away the most prominent game on those two teams' schedules, really by far now at this point, because, well, now the Pac-2, essentially both of those teams are going to be playing 7 games against Mountain West competition and some other non-conference games, of course, as well, but none of them are going to have the juice that the Apple Cup and the Civil War would. And to that same idea and point, yes, for example, so far the Missouri and Kansas basketball series, since it's been restarted here in the last few years, has been rather one-sided in Kansas's favor. But don't forget, people, Bill Self is not going to be around forever, okay? Times change. Kansas is not going to necessarily be great forever. They'll probably always be formidable forever, no question about that. I'm just saying you never know what's going to happen in the future. You shouldn't let just the last 3 years or whatever be your guide to how to view the Missouri-Kansas basketball series, which is at worst a guaranteed sellout every single year it happens in Mizzou Arena. Is that not valuable? Even on off years, that game's going to sell out. How is that not valuable? That was something that, as a Missouri student, you would look forward to every single year, regardless if Missouri basketball was good or not. As a season ticket holder, as a fan, whatever it might be, I think that's something that maybe the younger Missouri students, for example, haven't experienced the rivalry as much, have missed. But regardless, again, just objectively speaking, if you just want to stop playing the games, fine, that's your subjective opinion. But objectively, you're just getting rid of a guaranteed sellout game. How does that make any sense from a basketball side? Now, from the football side, next season, the rivalry is going to start up again, at least for a few games. And, there is more of an argument there in terms of there isn't quite as much juice, in terms of, well, this game's a guaranteed sellout. You really can't say that. There's definitely been games in the past, Missouri and Kansas, where both teams aren't particularly good, that Faurot Field was not full, no question about that. So it doesn't have quite the cachet for whatever reason. At the same time, before the rivalry was stopped, it was one of, if not the longest going rivalries west of the Mississippi, as they always said. So again, there's so much value there. There's so much history there, in my opinion. It's a game that, I don't know, maybe it did have too much emphasis, for sure, in the football program. So I could see maybe an argument there. I don't know. To me, though, I just think it's a little myopic to say that, we should just end the series and flush that history down the toilet simply because that was what Bill Self did, simply because he was spiteful years ago when this all first went down and Missouri went to the SEC. Why does Missouri have to be spiteful? I just don't see how that actually benefits Missouri. That's my whole thing. You want to spite Bill Self, I get the impulse, but let's not do it to cut off our nose to spite our face. That doesn't make any sense to me. But if you have some good arguments for it, I'd certainly like to hear it. Hit me up in the comments here on YouTube, or, obviously social media as well, at Locked On Mizzou, wherever, X, IG, Facebook, the whole deal, LockedOnMizzou@gmail.com. So until next time, I am John Miller, and this has been Locked On Mizzou.